Ow! Do you want to live debt-free? Well, that's dumb. What if I told you that the richest people have the most debt and the poor and middle class work hard all their lives to be debt-free? Why is that? Let's do a deep dive. Hey there, it's James Santiago, and you're watching Learn Wealthy. And today we're going to talk all about debt. This is episode 4 of Lies That Keep People Broke. Live debt-free! But I just want to make a quick disclaimer here. This is not a financial advice. Debt is only a tool. As a matter of fact, it's a very, very powerful tool that can work for you or against you. Just like fire or a knife or your car, you can do a lot more with them more efficiently and faster. But just like any tool, it can hurt you if used the wrong way. Debt is not for everyone. Using debt the wrong way can make you broke. But on the flip side, not using debt at all will keep you broke. So I'd rather use debt. Like I said, this is not a financial advice. I'm just going to tell you how the poor people use and views debt, how the middle class views and use debt, and how the rich people views and use debt. And then you can pick one on whatever sounds good to you. You may even see some similarities on how you use debt yourself in your own personal life. And I hope this video helps you make the best decision. Let's start with the poor people. Let's start off with their mindset. How do they make their money? Well, they make their money by trading their time. As we've learned in this previous video, time is the most limited resource. That if you tie up your income with time, then your income will be capped and limited as well. They also trade their physical strength, their health, for money. And health is another extremely limited asset or resource. So their income becomes limited as well because of that. If you tie up your income to your health, you're limiting your income unless you're a super athlete, which most of us are not. And then poor people's wages come in the form of W-2, which is the highest taxed income in the United States. Your politicians always tell you to tax the rich, but they're lying because the rich people don't make money primarily on W-2s. Your politicians are basically only taxing the upper middle class, who are working the hardest and who are already tapped out in society. Let's see, the poor people also makes money primarily for themselves, to buy stuff, to pay the bills. Even if they intentionally want to share, there's only so much being made, and it's only enough for their needs. Now let's talk about how poor people use and views debt. Why do poor people borrow money? Well, mainly to buy stuff that depreciates in value. They buy depreciating liabilities with the money they borrowed. Sometimes the stuff that they bought will already be used up or consumed, and they'd still be paying interest on the debt, which is very sad. But wait, there's more! Here's a sadder one. Sometimes they'd borrow money just to pay the utilities, bills, and buy groceries. They borrow money just for survival sometimes. And oftentimes, because they don't have good credit, they have to pay a much higher interest on the money they borrowed to buy liabilities and necessities. And they're trapped. Basically, poor people use debt to trap themselves. Now let's talk about the middle class. Let's start by how the middle class makes money. Same thing, mainly they trade their time for money. Money is limited. Income made by trading time means income is limited. The middle class also uses their bodies or their health to make money. And also they use their brains, like managers, software engineers, nurses, doctors. They usually make money with W-2 income. Like I said, it's the highest taxed form of income in the United States. But since the middle class makes a little bit more money, they're in a higher tax bracket. The higher you are in the middle class space, the more the government is sticking it to you. So instead of being an upper middle class, I'd rather be rich. The middle class also makes money primarily for themselves, for their expenses, their bills, their families, for saving and vacation. A lot of middle class would provide value to others as well, like nurses, doctors, engineers, but usually would provide value to others on a smaller scale. A handyman, for example, would only get to serve about 200, 400 people every month. The middle class would buy assets using their hard-earned money, but not a lot. Hard-earned money is bound by time, so hard-earned money is limited, so you can only buy so much assets. Add to that the fact that with W-2 income, the government would already take their piece of a pie every month, and you're gonna have to split on whatever's left between your expenses and buying assets if you have any left. The middle class have assets that you can't use to borrow money, like stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency. You can borrow money on a different way and use that money to buy these assets, but you cannot use these assets directly as collateral. And there's a reason for that, which will be on another video. So the only asset that the middle class can buy that can be used as collateral and borrow money is their primary home. But they're only calling this an asset. A primary home does not provide you income on net balance. If you think that your primary home is an asset, watch this video. And the middle class usually works hard all their life to pay their mortgage. And this does not serve them. This only gets them tired. If a middle class person gets 0% interest on a credit card, like an introductory rate of 0% for 15 to 18 months, what do you think they're going to do with it? Usually splurge a little, maybe go on a vacation. Oh, hey! I'm going on vacation on 0% free money. There's nothing you can do about it, girl. I'm going to Japan and I'm bringing Japan teas. First of all, nobody should be paying interest for a vacation. If you had to borrow money just to go on a vacation, maybe you shouldn't be going on a vacation just yet. Now let's move on to rich people. Why does the rich people make money? Primarily so they can make more money. They make money work for them, so they don't have to. If your money is unemployed, you most likely belong to the poor and middle class. How do rich people make money? Rich people make money by using ideas and creativity. Remember I told you that the poor and middle class makes money, generates income by using time and their health, which are two very limited things. The rich people make money out of their ideas and creativity. And ideas and creativity work the opposite way. The more ideas and creativity you use, the more ideas and creativity you will have. Ideas and creativity is extremely abundant. And if you tie up your income generation with ideas and creativity, then your income will also be abundant. And since ideas and creativity does not have any cap or limits, your income will also have no limits. Rich people make their money by providing value to a large number of people. iPhones, for example, changed all our lives around the world. You can argue about the bad things about iPhones, but in net balance, iPhones will benefit people. And also, it depends on the people using it. You know how some people argue just to be right, even though their belief does not really benefit them. Anyways, our lives got so much easier and better with iPhones and technology in general. A handyman who's middle class may serve 200, 400 people a month, but decides to use his creativity to help more people. He then borrows money for capital, then hires and trains a bunch of people for employees, hires a manager, creates a system to provide the services that he used to provide alone. But now he can provide these services to 1 million people. Rich people provide value on a bigger scale. Zig Ziglar once said, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. Now let's proceed to how rich people use debt. Rich people generally borrow money to make more money. They put the money they borrow to work as a capital for a business or to invest in assets. This term is called OPM, other people's money. Rich people use credit cards too. And most of the time they can even pay whatever they're going to buy in cash, but they still use the credit card. The caveat is they have to pay it off before the due date, so they're not charged any interest. And in doing that, they accumulate points. These points can now be used for many things like travel tickets and hotels. So the rich use debt to get points. But here's my favorite way of using credit cards. I usually shop for this 0% introductory rate for about 15 to 18 months. And I use it to buy dividend stocks. I used to buy US Treasury with it, but now I prefer dividend stocks. How do I do that? Well, I use the 0% credit card to pay for the stuff I would usually buy and pay for anyway, like gas, utility bills, groceries. So technically, I'm not spending extra money. Let's say the limit on that credit card is $10,000. I would use all of that Therefore, it frees up $10,000 of my own cash, and with that cash, I would buy dividend stocks. Then let those dividend stocks compound and generate interest. Not simple interest. I'm compounding them. Let's say a typical dividend stocks that I buy is 6% annual yield on dividends. I put that $10,000 and I buy 3,000 shares with it, for example. So that's 6% annual yield. If you divide it, I like the stocks that pay me monthly. I have dividend stocks that pay me quarterly or monthly. But let's use the monthly, for example. Let's say that stock has an annual dividend yield of 6%. If you divide it by 12, then it's yielding you 0.5% every month. So at the end of the first month, I would have made $50 on this $10,000 that I put on my portfolio. But the next month, since I automatically reinvest the dividends, the portfolio at the beginning of next month would be $10,050. So if that $10,050 made another 0.5% interest next month, that portfolio would make $50.25. And now this portfolio at the end of the second month would be $10,100.25. Fast forward to 12 months. We need to calculate our ROI. The stock's at 6% annual yield, but because I was reinvesting the dividends and compounding it, I now have a CAGR, compound annual growth rate. That's a little bit more 6%. The total amount of my portfolio at the end of 12 months is $10,616.78. Fast forward to 18 months, my total portfolio would be $10,939.28. Now, how much is my ROI in this example? The formula for ROI is net profit divided by the cost of the investment. Now, my net profit in this example over, let's say 18 months is $939.28. So divided by the cost, my cost is not $10,000. I simply borrow that $10,000 from the bank and I will give it back after 18 months. That was the credit card company's money that I just borrowed with 0% interest. So yeah, I only made $939.28, but I used $0 to make that. And I didn't have to trade my time or my health to make that. Therefore, I cannot really calculate my ROI, $939.28 divided by 0. A typical iPhone calculator would say undefined. That's because I just made infinite ROI. If you make an ROI out of nothing, that's like infinity. We call that infinite ROI. I want to make a shout out to the channel Dividend Compounders with Cheese. I've been learning more about dividend stocks from this guy called Amos, not from Nancy Pelosi. Check out his channel. I'm pretty sure you'll love it. You'll love learning about dividends and also about his nipples and his wife's boyfriend. Okay, back to why rich people get in debt. Rich people get in debt to create a non-taxable income. You see, while most middle-class people work hard all their lives to pay off their mortgage, most rich people don't pay off their mortgage. They don't fully pay it off, both on their primary home, their liability, or their assets, their rental properties. They just pay it enough until it accumulates a whole bunch of new equity, and then they can cash out, refinance that equity that accumulated, and all that cash that they pulled out from their equity is non-taxable because it's a loan and it's not an income, but it will serve them like an income. They'll use that money that they pulled out to buy more assets. Nobody gets wealthy from shrinking. People get wealthy because of expansion. If you take your equity from a single house and is able to buy another house with that, you have 2 houses. That's expansion. But if you just work hard all your life, pay off that mortgage on that one house, it's not even staying in place. It's shrinking. If you don't throw more money on that one house year after year, it's going to depreciate in value. So yeah, keeping one house and paying off the mortgage is shrinking. An equity stuck in a home generates 0 returns. Appreciation does not care whether you have 0% equity or 100% equity. Fake appreciation of your house happens when the dollar gets weaker and the value of your house seems to go up against the depreciating currency. Real appreciation happens when the value of your home go up because there's an increased need for housing, because of more population, because of limited supply, and because of a booming economy. And that real appreciation has nothing to do with the amount of equity you have in your home. So yeah, rich people cash out refinance, doesn't get taxed because it's a loan. Then they use that capital to buy another house and increase their debt. But every house should be cash flowing. make sure you only take enough from the previous house so that it's still cash flowing, and make sure the new house is also cash flowing. The key is they all have to cash flow if you have to own multiple houses. Rich people use debt for asset protection. I'm not talking about LLCs or corporations. I'm talking about debt as asset protection. Let's get back to real estate as an example. If all your equity is on one house, let's say $300,000 of equity, and that house got burned like the houses in California, and there's no insurance because just right before the fire started, the insurance companies pulled out the coverage as if they have a crystal ball that the fire was going to happen. Now you just lost $300,000 of equity, got burned into the ground. Well, you still have the land, which still has some value, but will be of no use to you if it doesn't have a house, a structure that you can live into. And it cannot produce any cash flow if you don't know how to do agricultural stuff like take care of goats and farm. So you'll just end up paying property taxes on that land year after year, and it's just going to be a liability. Or what if that house gets foreclosed instead of burned? Even if you don't have a loan on it, even if that $300,000 equity on it is 100% equity, and for some reason you couldn't pay your HOA and property tax for 3 years. Let's say you got kidnapped by terrorists for 3 years. I don't know, I'm just making examples here. Okay, fine, let's say you got sick, or you wanted to go YOLO for 3 years, so you went to another country and ignored all your responsibilities in United States, and you didn't pay your property taxes and HOA. You still have those obligations, even if your house is paid off free and clear. And if the government foreclosed on your house, you would lose all that $300,000 equity that you probably worked hard for all your life. But let's say you spread out that $300,000 equity between 5 houses. Let's say each house has $60,000 of equity and each house has a loan of $240,000. You might say, wow, $240,000 loan times 5 houses, that's $1.2 million in debt.
Oh my God.
A lot of middle class people would be freaked out. Most people would say, I have $1.2 million exposure on debt. That is too risky. But is it really? Let's see, for example, one house gets foreclosed or maybe hit by a fire or a hurricane with no insurance on it. That one house that got burned or destroyed by a hurricane only had an equity of $60,000, and that's all you lost. And you still have the land. You still have the 4 other houses that's generating cash flow each. You lost $60,000 instead of $300,000. Now does $1.2 million in debt sound more risky than zero debt? I'd always take the 5 houses and the $1.2 million in debt any day. Alright, so there you have it. Whether you're poor, middle class, or rich, the way you use debt will determine whether it's working for you or against you. Debt is a tool, and like any tool, it can build or destroy depending how you use it. The poor use debt to survive, the middle class use debt to buy liabilities, and the rich use debt to create more wealth. The question is, how will you use it to make your life and your family's lives better? Thanks for watching, and remember, for more finance, investing, real estate, and macroeconomics, let's all learn wealthy together. I'll see you in the next video.